Your immigration papers are being processed. Please return in 2 weeks to collect your certificate." The clerk took the stack of documents, tidied them, and spoke without looking up at the person standing before the window. Willow Shaw nodded. Having submitted her paperwork, she didn't linger, turning to leave the Immigration Bureau. The sky outside was gloomy. The streets were bustling with people coming and going, but she was the only one aimlessly wandering the sidewalks. Willow drifted like this for a long time until dusk began to fall. Only then did she slowly start back toward her destination, the Sterling residence, the one place she had once longed to return to, and the one place she now dreaded most. Night had completely fallen by the time she reached the villa. The living room was empty. She let out a sigh of relief before slowly making her way upstairs. Just as she was about to enter her room, a series of muffled moans came from the adjacent room. "Ah, Ethan, not here. What if Willow sees us?" Before she could process it, another voice, one she knew all too well, chimed in. "Don't worry, she's not back yet. Besides, we'll soon be husband and wife. It's perfectly normal for a man and a woman in love to be intimate." In that moment, Willow finally understood what was happening in the room, and her face turned deathly pale. They had already reached this point. Ordinarily, the two people in that room were an engaged couple, and whatever they did was none of Willow's business. But it just so happened that one of them was her own sister, and the other was the man who had raised her, the man she had secretly loved for 10 years, her Uncle Ethan. 12 years ago, her parents, Arthur and Marion Shaw, had a bitter divorce. Her mother took her older sister, Rosalind, while Willow stayed with her father. But happiness was short-lived. 2 years later, her father died in an accident. Her mother refused to take her in, and she was destined for an orphanage. That was when Ethan Sterling appeared. He claimed to be a good friend of her father's and trusted to take her in. From then on, she joined the other young relatives in calling him Uncle Ethan and became the pearl he cherished, given anything and everything she wanted. When she got her first period, he canceled a multi-million-dollar deal to brew her hot chocolate and press a warm water bottle to her stomach. When she mentioned she liked a certain candy that had been discontinued, he went to great lengths to find it just to make her happy. And during the car accident when she was 15, he had instinctively shielded her with his own body, suffering 2 broken ribs and a month-long hospital stay as a result. Willow had fallen for his gentleness, gradually developing feelings for the man who raised her. On her 18th birthday, she mustered the courage to confess her love to him, only to be brutally rejected. After that, his attitude changed abruptly. Even so, Willow never thought of giving up. She stubbornly confessed her feelings once every year, never discouraged by his repeated rejections. Until 3 months ago, when he suddenly brought her sister, Rosalind Shaw, home and not long after, announced their engagement. He gave her sister all the romantic love she had ever craved from him. Worse, when Rosalind had cooked the stray dog Willow had adopted, and Willow, heartbroken and hysterical, confronted them with the pot of soup, he had pulled Rosalind into his arms. "That's enough. How long are you going to make a scene?" It was just a dog in that instant. Looking at the completely unfamiliar Ethan Sterling, Willow finally understood. The man standing before her was no longer the one who had doted on her, who had promised to be her rock for life. Her heart finally gave up. She decided to leave this place, leave him, and emigrate. She stumbled back, wanting to flee, but accidentally knocked over a vase placed by the wall. With a sharp crash, Willow froze for a second before the door behind her was thrown open. Rosalind emerged, adjusting her clothes, her face flushed. Ethan stood in front of her, his brow furrowed in a tight frown. "Where have you been? Why are you back so late?" Willow was silent for a moment. I was at the Immigration Bureau." But before she could finish, Rosalind cut her off. "Willow, don't be mad at me. I really didn't mean to do that to the dog. Once your Uncle Ethan and I are married, we'll be an even closer family." Before Willow could speak, Ethan's voice, laden with meaning, joined in. "Rosalind is moving in today. From now on, you need to get along with her. The house has a lady of the house now, so you need to be mindful of your words and actions." Willow lowered her head slightly. After a long moment, she grabbed Rosalind's hand and pulled her toward the front door. The sudden action startled everyone. Ethan, thinking she was about to cause another scene, was about to scold her, but Willow had already stopped, pulling Rosalind to the security keypad. "I'm a bit scatterbrained. Uncle Ethan used to worry I'd forget the code, so he set it to my birthday. Now, I'm changing it to yours." After changing the code, Willow pulled Rosalind upstairs and wheeled out the suitcase she had packed the day before from the master bedroom. "This room has the best light and orientation. When I first moved in, Uncle Ethan gave it to me. From now on, you're the lady of this house, so it's only right that you live here. I'll move to a guest room." After doing these two things, she thought for a moment, then took the protective charm from her wrist and slipped it onto Rosalind's. This charm's 5 years ago, after my car accident, Uncle Ethan knelt every step of the way up a mountain shrine to pray for this for my safety. Now, it belongs to you. A strange feeling stirred in Ethan as he watched her series of actions. His expression cold, he called out to Willow as she pushed her suitcase toward a guest room. "What is the meaning of this?" After a moment of silence, she replied, "It means nothing, just a housewarming gift for my sister. In the future, I wish you both happiness." With that, she entered a random room, leaving a bewildered Rosalind behind. "What's gotten into Willow?" After a long pause, Ethan said coldly, "Don't mind her. She's probably just throwing another tantrum. It used to be just the two of us in this house. Now that you're here, she's just not used to it." Ethan's gaze was dark as he watched her retreating back. He clearly didn't believe her words were sincere, assuming she was just being difficult. Rosalind smiled magnanimously. "Well, I'll try to cheer her up tomorrow. I'll be her sister and her aunt soon. I can't be fussing over a little kid." In her room, Willow listened to their fading voices, a bitter taste filling her mouth. "Don't worry, Uncle Ethan, I won't bother you anymore." Chapter 2, the next day, Willow deliberately dawdled, not leaving her room until noon. She had hoped to avoid Ethan and Rosalind, but just as she stepped out, she ran into the two of them, dressed and ready to leave. Seeing her, Rosalind's eyes lit up with delight. "We were just talking about you. Your Uncle Ethan is taking me out for lunch. You didn't even have breakfast today, so you should come with us." Willow instinctively wanted to refuse. She'd skipped breakfast precisely to avoid them, so why would she willingly tag along? "We're going on a date." "It's not appropriate to bring her," Ethan said, frowning. He clearly didn't like the idea either, but Rosalind just swayed his arm playfully. "Ethan, you're still Willow's uncle. You've taken care of her for so many years. You two have a special bond. If you start distancing yourself from her just because I'm here, she'll be heartbroken. As for dates, we have the rest of our lives together. We can go on a date anytime. There's nothing special about it. It's just a guardian and a child," Ethan replied coldly. "You two go ahead, I'm not going." Listening to their conversation, Willow couldn't deny the pang of hurt, but she had made up her mind to cut all ties after emigrating, so she refused. Ethan, who seemed to have never expected her to decline, felt that strange feeling rise in him again. The girl who used to cling to him constantly seemed to have changed completely overnight. He suppressed the feeling and said sternly, "Your sister is trying to be considerate of your feelings, and here you are throwing a fit. Go or don't, suit yourself." With that, he took Rosalind's hand and turned toward the door. Watching their departing figures, Willow fought back the sour feeling in her chest. The old Ethan would never have spoken to her in such a tone, nor would he have dismissed all her actions as tantrums. Perhaps this is the difference between being loved and not being loved, she thought. In the end, Willow was dragged along by Rosalind, who had come back for her. As she got into the car, she instinctively moved toward the front passenger seat, only to see Rosalind, arm in arm with Ethan, already sitting there. She froze, then gave a self-deprecating smile. Of course. His fiancée is Rosalind now. Why would I even think of sitting there? It's a bad habit. It needs to be broken. With that thought, she turned and got into the back seat. As soon as she was in, she heard the rustling of snack bags from the front. Looking up, Willow saw that the glove compartment was now stuffed with all sorts of snacks. The only thing they had in common was that they were all Rosalind's favorites. While she was still staring blankly, Rosalind had already started eating, occasionally feeding a piece to Ethan with a satisfied smile. He ate it without hesitation, then shook his head with a helpless look. "Eat less, we're having a meal soon." At his words, Rosalind clutched her snacks defensively, pouting. "It's all your fault for putting them here. If you hadn't, I wouldn't be eating them, would I?" All right, it's all my fault," Ethan said, his smile full of doting affection. He never once tried to stop her. Willow suddenly remembered that she, too, used to love snacks. Ethan had spoiled her, indulging her in everything except for one thing, his car. He was a neat freak and never allowed anyone to eat in his car, not even her. But now, an exception had been made. Not only did he prepare snacks for Rosalind, but he would also eat them with her. Willow had always thought she was the one and only special person in Ethan's life. It was only now that she finally realized she wasn't. He could be even better to someone else. She was never the most special one. They arrived at the reserved restaurant, and soon the dishes were served. Willow's breath caught in her throat as she looked at the table laden with seafood. She was about to look up and call out to Ethan when she saw him, head down, meticulously peeling shrimp. The movements were graceful, almost mesmerizing. After peeling a whole plate, he placed it all in front of Rosalind. In an instant, Willow felt as if a ball of cotton was lodged in her throat, rendering her speechless. She lowered her head again, a heavy, dull ache in her heart. She silently picked at her rice, not saying a word, until a shrimp was suddenly dropped into her bowl. "Willow, I know young girls are conscious about their looks, but you shouldn't diet at the expense of your health." Rosalind added more seafood to her bowl, the sauce dripping onto the rice. Willow hesitated, neither responding nor eating the food her sister had given her. The next second, Rosalind's eyes began to redden. "Are you still mad at me about the dog? I'm not dieting. It's just because I'm allergic to seafood." Before she could finish, Ethan slammed his chopsticks on the table with a loud crack, his face darkening. "Are you ever going to let the dog thing go? Rosalind gave you the food, so eat it. Don't act like this and upset her." Chapter 3, his words hung in the air. A wave of tears welled up, but Willow forced them back down. This wasn't the first time Willow had eaten seafood, but the last time was 8 years ago. She hadn't known she was allergic, only that she loved it. She had pestered him into making her a seafood feast, but after eating it, she had suffered from vomiting and diarrhea, breaking out in red hives all over her body. Her breathing had become labored, and she had nearly suffocated. Back then, he had stayed by her side day and night until she finally recovered. From that day on, seafood was never seen in their home again. He had remembered for 8 long years. Yet now, a single shrimp from Rosalind was enough for him to forget everything and even force her to eat it. Tears streamed down her face. She stopped trying to explain and, mixing her tears with the shrimp, put it in her mouth. Seeing her finally eat, Rosalind's tears turned to a smile. Watching the intimate and harmonious pair before her, Willow couldn't help but wonder, was this what he meant by being considerate of her feelings? Forcing her to watch their displays of affection and eat seafood she was allergic to? But this shrimp, it was so bitter, so salty. After forcing down 2 more bites, Willow made an excuse and quickly left the table. She grabbed her bag and headed for the restroom. Just as she reached it, an intense itch spread across her body and her breathing became ragged. The allergic reaction was starting. With a trembling hand, she fumbled in her bag for her allergy medication. Just as she was about to take it, the pills were snatched from her hand. She turned to see Rosalind's face. It was like she was a different person. Her lips curled into a mocking sneer, and her words were daggers. "How does it feel watching the man you love with someone else? Is it painful?" Willow's heart leaped, her face draining of color. Rosalind took in her reaction, her malice on full display. "Willow Shaw, you are so shameless, falling in love with the man who raised you, your own uncle. But what can you do? The one marrying Ethan Sterling is me. And you're just a shameless hussy who covets her brother-in-law. So, let your big sister teach you a little lesson." A dark premonition welled up from deep within her, but the allergic reaction was too strong. She tried to snatch her medicine back, but in the next second, with a clatter, the pills were all poured into the sink, and the running water washed them down the drain. "My medicine, my pills." Her breathing grew more and more frantic as Rosalind's figure vanished from her sight. Willow could only reach out a hand in vain, trying to cling to her fading consciousness and go for help. But as she took a single step, her vision went black, and she collapsed to the floor. When she woke up, the acrid smell of disinfectant told her she was in a hospital. She looked around, but there was no one by her side. After asking a doctor, she learned it was a restaurant server who had brought her in. "You had a severe allergic reaction. You need to be very careful about what you eat and drink from now on. Things like seafood, mangoes, peanuts, and milk are all allergens for you. You must avoid them in the future." After giving his instructions and prescribing some medication, the doctor waved her off, indicating she could be discharged. As she was handling the paperwork, she glanced at her phone. There was only a single text message. She opened it, but it wasn't the message of concern she had hoped for. It was a reprimand. "You left without even saying goodbye. The older you get, the more ill-mannered you become." She gave a bitter smile and typed a few words back. "I had an allergic reaction and passed out. I'm at the hospital now." For a long time, there was no reply. That night, Willow didn't sleep a wink. It wasn't until the morning light streamed through the curtains that she washed up and went downstairs. In the dining room, Rosalind looked at the two large, dark circles under her eyes and gave a knowing smile. "Willow, why are your dark circles so bad today? Did you stay up all night binge watching a show?" Chapter 4, Willow let out a self-deprecating laugh. She had no idea how her sister could be such a good actress. Hearing this, Ethan finally glanced up at her. His eyes lingered on her dark circles for a moment before he mercilessly looked back down. "Today is a work day. You were the one who insisted on joining Sterling Group to help me. Even though you're just an intern, since you're in the company, you should be responsible for your work. If this affects your performance, I won't cover for you." His cold, detached demeanor was exactly like that of a real boss. After a moment of shock, a wave of bitterness washed over her again. Yes, she had begged and pleaded to get into Sterling Group. After graduating high school at 18, she had confessed her feelings to him, and he had begun to distance himself. But she remained stubborn, obstinately choosing business management, a major she didn't even like, and then worming her way into an internship at his company. At the time, she thought he had finally relented because he was moved by her persistence. She never imagined he was just tired of her pestering. Thinking of this, Willow blinked back the stinging in her eyes. "It won't happen again. I won't stay at your company, and I won't pester you anymore. Are you happy now, Uncle Ethan?" After a simple breakfast, Willow went to the office with Ethan. She watched his figure disappear into the elevator before returning to her desk. As soon as she sat down, she received a message from HR on the internal network. "Willow, could you come over for a minute?" The HR department wasn't far. Willow walked over quickly, and the HR manager placed her internship contract in front of her. "I called you over because your internship contract is expiring. I wanted to ask if you plan to become a full-time employee or if you won't be renewing." Without much thought, she shook her head. "I won't be renewing." The HR manager was surprised. After all, Sterling Group was one of the top corporations in the city, and most people who got a foot in the door wouldn't pass up the chance to stay. But then, thinking of Willow's relationship with Ethan, the manager nodded with understanding. "All right then, I'll arrange for someone to handle the handover with you shortly." Willow nodded. As she was about to leave, the manager handed her a file. "Oh, right, this needs Mr. Sterling's signature, but I'm a bit tied up right now. Could you please take it up to him?" Taking the file, Willow rode the elevator to the top floor. She knocked, but the office was silent. No one answered. After a moment's thought, she pushed the door open and walked in. She placed the file on the desk, not intending to stay. As she turned to leave, her hand brushed against a book on the desk. With a soft thud, the book fell to the floor, scattering the photos tucked inside. She bent down to pick them up and froze when she saw the person in the pictures. It was her, from high school, but she had no memory of ever taking these photos. The only explanation was that Ethan had had them taken. Realizing this, Willow's heart began to pound wildly. She picked up a few other books and, sure enough, found a photo tucked inside each one. Without exception, they were all pictures of her from her high school days. Why would Ethan secretly have her photographed? And why would he hide these pictures and keep them all this time? The answer was screamingly obvious. She looked at the other books on the desk, forcing down her shock. As she expected, they all contained photos of her. "What are you doing?" Ethan's voice suddenly came from behind her. Willow instinctively turned around and saw him, his face instantly darkening with rage the moment his eyes fell on the photos in her hand. "Why did you come in here?" "I came to drop off a file that needs your signature." She pointed to the file in the center of the desk, then paused, meeting his gaze and holding up the photos. "I've answered your question. Now it's your turn to answer mine. Did you have these photos taken, Uncle Ethan? And why? Why did you take them in secret?" Chapter 5, the air was thick with silence. After a moment, Ethan finally spoke. "Your father asked me to look after you. Naturally, I had to pay close attention to you. Is there a problem with me having photos of you? Of course, there was no problem with that. But the problem was, if it was just about keeping an eye on me, then why did you hide these photos? Willow pressed on, relentless, determined to get an answer. She thought she had finally caught him, but he just shook his head calmly. I wasn't hiding them. I just tucked them away when I received them and forgot about it. As if to prove the truth in his words, he reached out, snatched the photos from her hand, and in the next second, dropped them all into the trash can. Instead of overthinking things, Willow, you should be focusing on your work. I've told you many times, I will only ever be your guardian. That last sentence was a death sentence. Willow stared at the photos in the trash, her hopeful heart sinking to the bottom of a cold abyss. Tears welled in her eyes, but she fought to keep them from falling, a bitter laugh echoing in her soul. That sentence again. Because he knew her father, he always positioned himself as her elder. But in the end, he was only 8 years older than her. Forget it. What am I even hoping for? He had already decided to marry someone else. Digging into this now was pointless. This is the CEO's office. In the future, do not enter without permission. He turned his back to her, his voice cold, shattering the last bit of peace in her heart. After a long moment, she wiped away the tear that had escaped and let out a bitter laugh. Don't worry. It won't happen again. I've already resigned. Like a clap of thunder, his words hit him. Ethan spun around, his expression shifting. You were the one who begged and pleaded to get in, and now you're the one who's leaving so easily. Is this your attitude? The accusation was unmistakable. She looked up, her reddened eyes meeting his. He felt a slight jolt, wondering if his words had been too harsh. But in the next second, her defiant voice rang out. Didn't you always say you didn't want me here, distracting you from your work? It's better that you've resigned. Having you work here was indeed a distraction for me. The words caught in his throat. He put on his cold mask again, sat down at his desk, and ignored her. Willow turned and left the office. As she pulled the door shut, she watched the gap narrow until he was completely gone from sight and answered his question in her heart. It won't happen again, Uncle Ethan. In 10 days, I won't just stop distracting you at work. I'll be out of your entire life. Downstairs, the colleague assigned to the handover had arrived. After a brief greeting, they got straight to business. Once the handover was complete, Willow packed her things and prepared to leave. Just as she stepped out of the building, a Rolls-Royce pulled up in front of her. Get in. The window rolled down, revealing Ethan's sharp, chiseled face. Willow didn't argue, she just opened the door and got in. After the car had been driving for a while, she realized this wasn't the way home. She didn't ask. It wasn't until the car stopped in front of a bridal shop that he finally spoke. I have an appointment with Rosalind to try on wedding dresses today. I need you to help her out. A few moments later, a woman in a wedding gown with a long train came running out of the shop and threw herself into his arms. Ethan, you're finally here. I've been waiting for you for so long. You didn't even tell me Willow was here. You just wanted to watch me make a fool of myself. Lifting her head, she saw Willow behind him. A blush crept up her cheeks, and she playfully tapped his chest. Ethan only smiled indulgently. Once she'd had her fill of pouting, she turned to Willow and pulled her into the shop. There are so many dresses here, you have to help me decide. I have no idea which one to choose. Willow had no room to refuse. But when it came to actually trying on the dresses, she didn't try to shirk her duty. She genuinely helped Rosalind choose. But no matter what she suggested, Rosalind always found a flaw and rejected it. Chapter 6. After yet another dress was sent back, the bridal shop assistant gave up on making recommendations and simply showed Rosalind all the dresses in the store. But out of the hundreds of styles, not a single one caught her eye. Until, as they walked, they found themselves in a section of undisplayed gowns. A strapless, satin, mermaid-style wedding dress immediately captivated her. Rosalind's eyes lit up. She turned to Ethan. Ethan, this dress is beautiful. Hearing that she had finally found one she liked, Willow couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. But when she saw the dress herself, her expression changed instantly. Well, Miss Shaw, this dress was custom-made from a design a client provided. It's not for sale, she just hasn't come to pick it up yet, the assistant explained apologetically, trying to steer them toward other gowns. But Rosalind was already tugging at Ethan's sleeve, cooing. Ethan, I really love this dress. Please, can you buy it for me? He nodded at the assistant and placed a black card on the counter. Who is the owner of this dress? Contact them. I'll pay 10 times the price. The assistant glanced at the black card, a war raging in her mind. In the end, she gave in. Thankfully, they had contact information for all their clients. A moment later, Willow's phone rang. At the sound, both Ethan and Rosalind looked at her, their eyes wide with surprise. "You designed this?" Willow was silent for a long moment before she finally nodded. Hearing this, Ethan's hand trembled slightly, but Rosalind's face lit up with a joyous smile. This was the dress she had designed herself 4 years ago. From the very beginning, she had imagined wearing this dress to marry the man she loved most, Ethan Sterling. But for 4 years, her every confession had been met with rejection. The dress had gathered dust, and she had never come back to get it. Rosalind immediately piped up. "That's perfect. Willow, you don't even have a boyfriend right now. What do you need a wedding dress for? Just let me have this one, and you can design a new one later. Or I could pick one from the ones you said you liked and we can trade." Then Ethan spoke up. "Since Rosalind likes it, let her have it. It's not like you have any use for it." She wanted to argue that this dress was different. But then she thought again. The whole point of this dress was to marry Ethan. Now that he was marrying Rosalind, the dress had lost its meaning. And so, just as everyone expected her silence to mean refusal, she suddenly nodded in agreement. Seeing her agree so readily, Rosalind was overjoyed and immediately asked the assistant to take the dress down. Watching Rosalind happily carry the dress to the fitting room, Willow couldn't help but laugh at herself. When she designed this dress, she never would have imagined that the woman marrying Ethan would actually wear it. It just wasn't her. "This dress suits me perfectly. Thanks for letting me have it, Willow. But speaking of which, why did you suddenly decide to have a wedding dress made? Is there someone you like?" Before long, Rosalind emerged in the dress. After thanking her, she gave Willow a teasing look. As she spoke, Ethan's gaze instantly shot over to Willow, but he only glanced at her briefly. Willow understood the meaning in his eyes and avoided his gaze. "No, I was young, and it's natural to have fantasies about love. That's why I had the dress made." After her explanation, his gaze moved away without a second's hesitation. Willow smiled bitterly. How much did he fear anyone finding out about their past? Well, it doesn't matter. I'll be gone soon. I won't cause them any more trouble. Willow is old enough to start dating now. I know a few nice guys. Should I introduce you? Rosalind had suddenly taken an interest in her love life. Willow was about to refuse, but Ethan beat her to it. "Yes, you can. Your birthday is in a few days. I'll throw a party for you. You can invite those men to come and meet her then." Having gotten his approval, Rosalind happily walked away to make the calls. Left alone, Willow looked at Ethan's impassive face, her voice trembling. "Do you want me to be with someone else that badly? I'm about to marry your sister. I don't want any more complications. Besides, this is a kind gesture from your sister." His tone was normal, as if he were truly just a guardian concerned for his ward. Her eyes filled with disbelief, but seeing his determined expression, all her resistance crumbled. "Fine, I'll meet them." She gave a self-mocking laugh and nodded. Chapter 7. The day of the party arrived quickly. The guests were all top elites from the business world. When Ethan appeared with Rosalind on his arm, they immediately became the center of attention. Willow followed behind them, watching as he stayed by Rosalind's side, his attention completely focused on her. He draped a coat over her when she was cold, brought her a drink when she was thirsty, and gifted her cars, properties, and jewels worth billions. She thought that would be the end of it, but then he looked at Rosalind and spoke again. "After we're married, I will transfer 30% of my shares to Rosalind." The announcement sent a shockwave through the crowd. Everyone used to know Ethan Sterling, the CEO of Sterling Group, as an unattainable ice prince. Besides his little niece, he was cold to everyone. "I thought that was the best he could be, but I never imagined he could dote on someone like this. How can a niece compare to a lover? But I'm only just realizing now that when Mr. Sterling loves someone, he'd give them his own life. I'm so envious of Miss Shaw. I wonder when I'll meet someone who loves me like that." The whispers of the crowd reached Willow's ears. When she heard the line, "How can a niece compare to a lover?" she couldn't help but smile bitterly. Yes, how can a niece compare to a lover? She used to be the exception in Ethan's heart, which made her misunderstand his feelings. Looking back now, all that special treatment was indeed just the care of an elder for a child. After the main part of the party, Rosalind, escorted by Ethan, walked over to Willow and handed her a key card from her purse. "Those guys are upstairs. Take this key card and go meet them." After a moment of silence, Willow took the key card and went upstairs. But as she swiped the card and opened the door, her heart lurched. The men in the room were the city's most notorious, wealthy playboys. She instinctively tried to run, but before she could turn, one of them lunged at her, his hands all over her. Another one locked the door. "Hey there, little beauty, don't run, your sister already sold you to us. You might as well give in and accept your fate, ha ha ha." The lewd laughter echoed in her ears, and Willow felt as if she'd been struck by lightning. She never thought Rosalind would do something like this, fighting off their groping hands. She pulled out her phone and dialed Ethan's number. 1 call, 2 calls. On the 9th call, he finally answered. She felt a glimmer of hope, like a ray of light breaking through the darkness. The words for help were on the tip of her tongue when she heard the noisy background on his end. Rosalind twisted her ankle. "I'm very busy right now, I don't have time for you." With that, he hung up. The dial tone was her death sentence. Despair washed over her, her heart feeling as if it were being sliced open. Was he that concerned about Rosalind? So concerned that a twisted ankle meant he didn't even have a second to listen to a single word from her. As the men closed in, she felt a cold object in her hand. It was a fruit knife the louts had been using earlier. Without thinking, she grabbed the knife and began swinging it wildly. When she saw that they weren't scared, but even more excited, she pressed the blade to her own neck. "Don't come any closer. If you take one more step, I'll kill myself." The men were hedonists, not hardened criminals. Though they played rough, the threat of a dead body on their hands made them hesitate. One of them, not believing she'd go through with it, took a tentative step forward. In the next second, a line of crimson seeped from her neck where the blade pressed. This time, no one dared to call her bluff. "She's a madwoman, forget it, this is no fun." The leader hadn't expected to encounter someone so defiant. His face soured as he pushed the door open and left, muttering curses under his breath. It wasn't until the last man had left the room that Willow finally let out a sigh of relief. As she stumbled out of the room, her racing heart finally settled. The fruit knife clattered to the floor, and the tears she had held back burst forth. That night, as Willow slept fitfully, the day's events replayed in a fractured nightmare. The despair washed over her again and again. She tossed and turned, her forehead beaded with sweat, her lips pale. Suddenly, a knock on the door jolted her awake. She gasped for air, wiping the sweat from her face. The knocking continued, and she got up to open the door. Rosalind stood outside. Seeing her disheveled state, she showed no sympathy, only deep regret in her voice. "You got lucky, running into those useless wastes. A whole group of them couldn't even handle one woman." Chapter 8, Why Did You Do It? Rosalind sneered. "Because I love Ethan, and you just happen to be the person he used to dote on the most. What's more, your feelings for him are impure, so don't blame me for being cruel." As she spoke, Rosalind's tone turned vicious. She suddenly pulled a fruit knife from her clothes, screamed, and plunged it into her own shoulder. Crimson blood splattered onto Willow's face. The warmth felt scalding hot, blinding her for a moment. In the next second, she was shoved hard to the ground. When she opened her eyes, she was met with Ethan's furious face. "Rosalind is your own sister, how dare you lay a hand on her?" Willow was still reeling from the shock when his accusation hit her. After a moment of stunned silence, she shouted her explanation. I wasn't the one who hurt her, but it was clear Ethan didn't believe her. "My wedding to Rosalind is in a few days. Do you really think she would intentionally harm herself just to frame you?" Seeing the undisguised suspicion in his eyes, a wave of grief washed over her. Willow stubbornly repeated, "It really wasn't me." But Ethan didn't even spare her another glance. He scooped Rosalind up in his arms and walked out of the villa. Watching them disappear into the distance, Willow could no longer hold back her tears. Not long after, Ethan returned. Without a word, he pulled her into the car and sped toward the hospital. Willow hadn't even had time to dry the tears on her face before she was pushed in front of the blood donation room. "Rosalind is hemorrhaging. You have the same blood type. Go give her blood." His words only deepened Willow's sense of injustice. She yanked her hand away, defiant and obstinate. She hurt herself. Why should I pay the price for her actions? Ethan's brows furrowed tightly. He looked at her as if she were a child who had done something terrible and refused to repent. He physically forced her inside. Still making excuses? When you do something wrong, you have to accept the punishment. You hurt Rosalind. This is what you owe her. His tone was non-negotiable. It wasn't until the needle was in her arm that he finally let her go. The blood slowly drained from her body. By the end, her lips were white. When it was all over, Ethan was already standing guard outside Rosalind's operating room. Walking down the hall toward the OR, Willow saw his back, completely devoted to Rosalind, not sparing her a single thought. She suddenly remembered the man he used to be, the one who always had her back, who told her he would always be there for her, always believe in her. But now, he had broken his promise. A wave of dizziness hit her. Her vision went black and she collapsed. When Willow woke up, she had no idea how much time had passed. Her entire body ached with a deep chill spreading from her limbs. She looked around and realized she was still lying on the cold hallway floor, unnoticed. She slowly got up and walked out. 2 nurses passed by with trays of medicine, their conversation drifting into her ears. Mr. Sterling is so good to his fiancée. He booked this entire floor just so she could rest properly. So generous. That's not all. Did you see how he was taking care of Miss Shaw earlier? The CEO of a major corporation, personally wiping her down and caring for her. The voices faded. Willow's gaze turned toward the hospital room, and her feet moved on their own. Soon, she was standing outside the door. Through the small glass window, she could see everything inside. Ethan was holding a bowl of steaming porridge, blowing on each spoonful before gently bringing it to Rosalind's lips. I heard Willow was the one who gave me blood yesterday. Is it okay for you to stay here with me all the time? I'm sure she's not a cruel person. She was just throwing a childish tantrum and accidentally hurt me. Maybe you should go check on her? Ethan, holding the bowl, didn't even flinch. He just shook his head. No need. Whether she did it on purpose or by accident, the fact is she hurt someone. She should have known there would be consequences for her actions. Willow leaned against the door, a bitter smile on her lips. Even now, he still thought she was the one who hurt Rosalind. But what had she done wrong? Unable to watch the scene any longer, Willow walked slowly out of the hospital. The glaring sun shone down on her. She looked at the time on her phone. It's okay, just 1 more day left. Chapter 9. Willow never intended to hide her emigration from Ethan. Her original plan was to say a proper goodbye on the last day. But with Rosalind injured, all his attention was focused on her, and the chance for a farewell never came. On her final morning, Willow washed up, ate a simple breakfast, and left the house. Before leaving for good, she went to visit her father. She placed a bouquet of pale chrysanthemums in front of the tombstone and sat down, speaking softly to him as if catching up. Dad, your daughter has been unfilial. I might not be able to visit you anymore. My sister and Uncle Ethan are getting married. They'll be a family now. The next time he comes, he'll probably bring her. Dad, I'm leaving. After this, I really won't have a home here anymore. After speaking, Willow stood up and left. She didn't go home. Instead, she went to the Immigration Bureau and picked up her process certificate. After a long journey back, she immediately started packing. Willow didn't have many things. Most of them were gifts from Ethan. The birthday photo album he promised to fill with new pictures, every year an album that could hold 100 photos, yet contained only 12 before being sealed at the bottom of a box. She opened the album, gently tracing the pictures. The chubby cheeks of her youth had thinned, revealing a face both fresh and innocent. The last photo was taken on her 18th birthday. She had carefully placed the developed picture in the album, and then, with a nervous heart, confessed her love to him. Uncle Ethan, I love you. 6 simple words she had hidden for 3 years. After that, he never took another birthday photo with her, nor did they ever celebrate a birthday together again, not hers, not his. Willow placed the album in a box and then looked at the dream catcher hanging above her bed. When she had first moved into the Sterling house, she was too afraid to admit she had nightmares every night. But he had keenly sensed her discomfort and had even learned to make a dream catcher by hand, hanging it by her bedside. She took down the dream catcher, placed it in the box, and after a bit more packing, only one gift remained: the life-sized teddy bear that had been with her for 9 years. When she was little, she would always pester Ethan to sleep with her. As she grew older, he began to refuse, but she, not understanding the boundaries between men and women, kept insisting. Finally, worn down by her tears, he bought her the teddy bear, saying that since he couldn't sleep with her, he was sending his little bear Knight to keep her company. One by one, all the gifts were packed into the box. Willow picked up the large carton, carried it downstairs, and threw it into a trash can a little further down the street. After all that, she took out a piece of paper and wrote a farewell letter. Then, she took the letter and went into his study. The desk was piled high with books, from fairy tales to management texts. Willow picked up the book closest to her right hand, opened it to tuck the letter inside, and was suddenly captivated by the dense handwriting filling the pages. She looked closer and saw that the entire page was covered with the same 3 words, Willow Shaw. And the sentence at the bottom of the page stunned her even more. Willow, the one thing I didn't do right was fall for you. As she stood there, stunned, Ethan pushed the door open. Seeing the book in her hand, his heart skipped a beat. What are you doing? She turned, still holding the book, her eyes a swirling mix of complex emotions. You said you had my pictures taken to take better care of me, so why did you write my name over and over? Was that for my care, too? And this sentence, what does it mean? The room fell silent. Just then, his phone rang. He answered. It was Rosalind. Ethan, I just had a nightmare. I'm so scared. Where are you? I'll be right back. He was silent for a long time. As he turned to leave, he paused at the door and tossed a final sentence over his shoulder. It means nothing. Just practicing my handwriting when I was bored. Stop obsessing over meaningless things. Instead of this, you should be thinking about how you're going to apologize to Rosalind when she gets back. With that, he left without another glance. It wasn't until his back had completely disappeared from view that she gave a bitter smile, placed the letter inside the book, and put it back on the shelf. Then, she picked up her suitcase and took a taxi straight to the airport. Ethan Sterling, you're 8 years older than me, but you're a coward. I've already been brave. For the rest of our lives, the one with regrets won't be me. Chapter 10. For some reason, after leaving the study, Ethan couldn't shake a feeling of unease. He remembered the look in Willow's eyes and sighed heavily. She was just so stubborn. 4 years of rejection hadn't been enough to make her let go of that inappropriate love. A plane streaked across the sky, leaving a long white trail. While waiting at a red light, he looked up, trying to calm his agitated emotions, but his heart suddenly started racing. He felt as if something was slipping away from him, something he wanted to grab but couldn't hold on to. The moment the car stopped in the hospital parking lot, that sense of dread magnified, enveloping him like a dark cloud. He didn't want to see Rosalind anymore. The instant the thought arose, he restarted the car and sped away. In the hospital room, Rosalind waited. Every sound made her look up. Her wound still throbbed, a little blood even seeping through the bandage. She had torn it open herself, enduring the pain, just to make Ethan feel sorry for her. But the doctor had come twice, the nurse 4 times, and 9 people had walked past her door, yet Ethan still hadn't returned. A wave of anxiety washed over her. She took a few deep breaths to calm herself and dialed his number again. Ethan, where are you? Why aren't you here yet? Did something happen on the way? She feigned a poised and graceful demeanor, even preparing an excuse for his tardiness. But just as she had everything ready, Ethan refused to play along and gave her a different answer. I have a feeling something's wrong with Willow. I'm going back to check on her first. I'll come be with you later, or I can call a nurse for you. His tone was questioning, but he hung up before Rosalind could even respond. Rosalind was stunned. Ever since they'd made their relationship official, Ethan had been nothing but good to her, practically catering to her every whim. He'd even believed her flimsy frame-ups without question and forced Willow to give her blood. She thought she had already won. But today's phone call was like a spark, small but powerful enough to detonate her fury. Her phone hit the door with a loud bang, the screen instantly spiderwebbing before going black. Rosalind didn't care. Her chest heaved, exposing her raw anger. She gritted her teeth, cursing under her breath. That shameless Willow Shaw, why doesn't she just die? It wasn't enough for her to be in love with her own uncle. Now that Ethan and I are getting married, she still dares to make a move on him, her face twisted with malice. A nurse, hearing the commotion, rushed in and saw her ferocious expression, taking a few hasty steps back. I want to be discharged, she screamed, her image completely shattered. The nurse tried to calm her down, but she wouldn't listen. The doctor tried to reason with her, but seeing she was adamant, he had her sign the papers and let her go. At the Sterling villa, When Ethan returned, he went straight to the study. The door was closed, and everything was back in its place, as if no one had ever been there. Remembering what he'd just said, he rushed to her room. He knocked first, and when there was no answer, he pushed the door open. The room was spotless, but because of that, it felt cavernously empty. The things she used to cherish and carefully display were all gone. His brow twitched, a dark premonition rising from the pit of his stomach. He looked at the closet by the bed, his hand trembling as he reached for the handle. He yanked it open, but didn't dare to look inside. Chapter 11, maybe it's all just my imagination. Maybe there are no signs of her leaving, and Willow is hiding in the closet right now, waiting to jump out when I'm panicking, just like she used to, and say coyly, "Uncle Ethan, scared you, didn't I? That's what you get for bullying me. If you don't coax me properly, I'm going to get angry and ignore you." Ethan let out a long breath and opened his eyes, only to freeze on the spot. Willow wasn't in the closet. There was nothing at all. It was completely empty, with no trace that Willow had ever lived there. His eyes filled with bewilderment, but he quickly found another excuse for himself. Maybe he had the wrong room, or maybe she had moved to another room to scare him, to tell him, "Uncle Ethan, I'm really angry now." So he hurried out of the room and pushed open every remaining guest room, one by one. But all he found was mounting disappointment and the terrifying realization of the final answer. When he saw the last room was also empty, covered in a thin layer of dust, all his hopes were shattered, and a hollow feeling began to grow in his chest. Suddenly, he remembered something and rushed back downstairs to the study. Willow was usually considerate and rarely entered his study uninvited. That was why he had dared to leave that book so casually on his desk. But now, she had not only entered his study, but had also touched his book. With that thought, he flew down the stairs, clinging to a final shred of hope as he pushed open the study door. His gaze fell on the book near the right side of the desk. It now had a noticeable bulge. He picked up the book, opened it, and the envelope appeared before his eyes. The letter was short, just a few lines, but it was enough to break his heart. "Uncle Ethan, I'm gone. I thought about telling you a long time ago that, just as you wished, I've given up on loving you. I'm sorry, Uncle Ethan. You raised me for so many years and I've caused you so much trouble. Don't worry, it won't happen again. I will leave you forever and never disturb your lives again. I just won't be able to attend your wedding. From now on, I wish you and my sister a long and happy life together. Goodbye, Uncle Ethan. Goodbye forever." The light piece of paper slipped from Ethan's hand, spiraling slowly to the floor. He seemed not to notice, feeling as if he were in a daze. Willow is gone. Where did she go? What does goodbye forever mean? His mind went blank. Without thinking, he pulled out his phone and dialed the number he knew by heart. The long, slow beeps of the dial tone hammered against his heart like a sledgehammer. Finally, the automated message telling him the call could not be connected echoed in his ear. It was only then that he realized he had been blocked. This was the outcome Ethan had dreamed of. He had rejected her love countless times, even getting involved with her sister, all to force her to let go of this forbidden love. 4 long years had passed, and his dream had finally come true, yet he felt no joy at all. Why? He didn't know. When Rosalind rushed back to the villa, this was the scene she found. Ethan sat listlessly at his desk, a white piece of paper lying by his feet. He seemed lost in thought. "Ethan, what's wrong? Did something happen to Willow?" She bent down and picked up the paper. When she saw the contents, a flicker of delight flashed in her eyes. Willow ran away on her own? Well, at least she has some sense, not clinging to Ethan's side forever. When Ethan and Rosalind had made their relationship official, she knew he was hiding a secret. He was good to her, showering her with public displays of affection. She thought, what woman could resist a man like Ethan, handsome, wealthy, capable, and unabashedly devoted? 3 months. In just 3 short months, they had gotten engaged at lightning speed and were about to be married. The only thing that bothered her was that secret. Chapter 12, Willow loved Ethan, and Ethan, who had seemingly grown cold to Willow, was not as innocent as he appeared. He said he loved her, but his eyes would always drift uncontrollably toward Willow. Rosalind hated Willow. From the moment she was born and stole their father's attention, Rosalind had seen her as a rival for affection. Later, when their parents divorced, her mother chose her, and her father didn't even fight for her, simply agreeing. So, the moment she learned that Willow loved Ethan, Rosalind made up her mind. She would be with Ethan. She would watch Willow suffer, and things had gone exactly as she'd planned. Her frame-ups were always absurd, but every time Ethan sided with her. And now, she had truly pushed Willow out. A sense of satisfaction welled up inside her. Suppressing her glee, she feigned regret. Our wedding is in a week, why would Willow leave on her own? And saying goodbye forever, she's such a child. Rosalind, our wedding, let's call it off. The words struck her like a bolt of lightning, leaving her utterly scorched. She looked up at him in disbelief. Ethan, what do you mean? Ethan closed his eyes, feeling a profound sense of exhaustion. He leaned back in his chair, his eyes shut, unwilling to look at her. I mean, we're not getting married. He repeated the words, enunciating each one. After a pause, he added, I won't take back the things I gave you. If you want any other compensation, you can ask for it. I don't want compensation, Ethan, I only want you what happened. Tell me if I did something wrong, I can change. As soon as Ethan finished speaking, Rosalind shook her head frantically. She ran to his side, clutching his arm, tears streaming down her face, looking utterly pitiful. She had only meant to play the victim to gain his sympathy, but as she moved, her eyes fell on the book in his hand. The flowing script was elegant, the strokes sometimes sharp, sometimes gentle. If one didn't read the content, it was a work of art. But the strokes formed a name, and it was the name she hated most in the world, Willow Shaw. What shocked her even more was the sentence at the end. Willow Shaw, meeting you was the beginning of every story. Rosalind's eyes widened, and her grip on Ethan's arm loosened. She slowly stood up, her mind completely consumed by those words. The beginning of what story? She had once thought that Ethan might have had feelings for Willow without realizing it. But now, seeing these words with her own eyes, she finally understood. There was no unrealized feeling. It was all an act. He had deceived himself, deceived Willow, and deceived her. Ethan Sterling, don't tell me you're going to say now that the person you actually love is Willow Shaw. Ethan still didn't open his eyes, which seemed to be a silent admission. It wasn't until he heard her breathing become ragged that he remembered the unhealed wound on her shoulder. He rubbed his temples, but still opened his eyes to look at her. Just as he was about to ask about her injury, she spoke first. Ethan Sterling, if you love Willow Shaw, then what am I? She asked, her eyes red. This time, the hurt was real, tears welled in her eyes. Ethan looked at her, silent for a long moment before finally saying, I'm sorry. I said I could compensate you. With that, he casually pulled a card from a nearby drawer and pushed it toward her, his tone as flat and emotionless as ever. There's $5 million in here. Take it. Chapter 13, seeing that Ethan's mind was made up, Rosalind picked up the card. Her knuckles turned white as she squeezed it, a sharp pain shooting through her fingers. She spun around, her voice seething with rage. Ethan Sterling, you will regret this. They parted on bitter terms, but he paid her curse no mind. Regret. It would be a lie to say he had no regrets, but if he had to do it all over again, he thought he would probably make the same choice. They were uncle and niece, in a manner of speaking. He was 8 years her senior. She was the rose he had raised with his own hands. He could withstand the judgment of the world, but Willow couldn't. She was so young, with so much potential. If he impulsively kept her by his side, he was afraid she would regret it later, regret falling in love with someone so unworthy. After sending Rosalind away, Ethan let out a slow breath and picked up his phone to make another call. Find out where Willow went, and get me a new SIM card. Yes, Mr. Sterling. His assistant, Mr. Davies, was efficient. Willow's travel records were quickly printed and delivered to the Sterling villa. Ethan took the documents and the new SIM card and waved his assistant away. He looked at the two items, laid out separately, but hesitated to open the file. She was entrusted to me by her father. It's only natural to look out for her. I won't interfere in her life anymore. Ethan told himself this, then took a deep breath. He opened the file and read it word by word, not daring to miss a single detail. When he reached a certain section, his pupils constricted. Crash rage surged through him. Ethan shot up and flipped the desk over. The pressure in the room was suffocating. He found his assistant's number and dialed. Bring Rosalind Shaw back to me. Meanwhile, Rosalind was driving to her mother's house. As she was about to make a turn, a small car suddenly darted out from the right. The shock made her slam on the brakes. The The screech of tires grated on her frayed nerves, her heart pounding as if it would burst from her chest. She looked up fearfully at the black car blocking her path. When no one got out to apologize, she stormed out of her car, pointing and shouting at the person inside. Rosalind had been spoiled her whole life. Her parents doted on her, her classmates flattered her, and Ethan had always indulged her. Her life had been smooth sailing, and the biggest injustice she had ever faced was Ethan breaking up with her over Willow earlier that day. Now, after a near-fatal accident, the person responsible was just sitting calmly in their car, showing no remorse. Fury instantly consumed her, burning away all reason. A torrent of curses poured from her lips until the car door opened and several large men in black suits stepped out, forming a line. "Miss Shaw, if you please." All her anger instantly evaporated. Rosalind's expression froze, and she swallowed the insults that were about to escape her lips. As her anger subsided and reason returned, she thought about how they had addressed her. Looking at the burly men blocking her path, she finally understood her situation. Regret and fear washed over her. She took a hesitant step back, forcing a weak laugh. "You know me. Can't we talk about this calmly? Why does it have to come to this?" As she spoke, she suddenly turned and bolted, trying to get back to her car and flee. But just as she pulled the door open, it was slammed shut with a bang. When she looked up, the men who had been in front of her were now surrounding her car. "Miss Shaw, if you please." The same words, the same cold demeanor, but this time there was no room for retreat. Rosalind's knuckles turned white, her lips trembling. Her mind raced, trying to remember who she could have possibly offended recently. Face after face flashed through her mind. Finally, with a sharp pain in her neck, her thoughts settled on Ethan Sterling's sharp, handsome face. Then everything went black and she crumpled to the ground. Chapter 14, when Rosalind woke up, she had no idea how much time had passed. All she could see was darkness. She fumbled to sit up, her body aching all over. With a soft click, the room was flooded with light. She instinctively shut her eyes, slowly opening them once she had adjusted to the brightness. Under the light, a man in a tailored suit sat on a sofa with his back to her. She could only see his silhouette. But the moment she saw him, Rosalind's heart skipped a beat. She spoke his name, her voice filled with confusion. "Ethan, what are you doing?" Ethan remained silent. He simply waved his hand, and two men came forward, grabbing her by the arms. They ignored her struggles and dragged her in front of him, then unceremoniously let go. Caught off guard, Rosalind lost her balance and fell heavily to the floor. "Oh!" A sharp pain shot through her wrist. Having been pampered her whole life, Rosalind couldn't bear such pain and immediately burst into tears. She gritted her teeth, pushed herself up, and looked at Ethan, tears clinging to her lashes, looking utterly pathetic. Just as she was about to speak, he suddenly stood up, walked over to her, and grabbed her by the chin. "Rosalind, I chose you because I thought you were a kind and pure person. How did I never realize how cruel-hearted you are? You call Willow your sister, yet you engage in such vile acts behind her back." At his words, Rosalind's face changed instantly. She forced a smile, still playing dumb. "Ethan, what are you talking about? I don't understand. You don't understand." Ethan's eyebrow arched, a cold smile playing on his lips. He beckoned to the men behind him, and they dragged in several other people, all of whom were shouting and cursing. "Ethan Sterling, you dare touch me. The Prescotts won't let you get away with this. What are you doing? Let me go, I'm telling you, Ethan, if I lose a single hair on my head, you'll pay for it with your life. Damn it, Ethan Sterling, you got a death wish. You think you can take on all of us." The group hurled threats at Ethan, but he seemed not to hear them, not even frowning. He pointed at the men, naming them one by one. "Chadwick Prescott, Brody Vance, Hunter Adler, Kyle Bishop. You said you were such good friends. Why don't you even say hello when you see each other?" Rosalind looked at the men, who were tied up, and the memory finally returned. Of course, she wasn't friends with them. She had never even met them before. Their only connection was one single event. At the birthday party, she had pushed Willow toward these men. Looking at his attitude now, it was easy to guess that he knew about it. Rosalind's face turned deathly pale. She desperately grabbed his arm and tried to explain, instinctively shifting all the blame to the men. "No, that's not it, Ethan. Listen to me, I don't know them. They're the most notorious scumbags in the city. Why would I know them? You must be mistaken. Yes, mistaken. Did they do something to offend you?" Don't mind me, just deal with them. She was so busy defending herself that she forgot she wasn't the only other person in the room. Chad Prescott and his friends, now saddled with more blame, finally noticed the woman in front of Ethan. They squinted, recognized her, and then, meeting Ethan's gaze, started cursing again. The insults grew fouler, but his expression remained unchanged, the slight curve of his lips never faltering. It was the same face as always, but for some reason, it now sent a chill down Rosalind's spine. Sure enough, in the next second, his voice, devoid of all emotion, sealed her fate. Rosalind, since you enjoy being a madam so much, why don't you go do that for a living? Chapter 15, Ethan Sterling, you can't do this to me, Ethan pulled away. As he turned, Rosalind finally processed what he had said. Her eyes widened in disbelief, and she shrieked his name. But no matter how hysterically she screamed, he never looked back. Mr. Sterling, what about those men? Once they were a short distance away, Mr. Davies hesitated and glanced back at Chad Prescott and the others, his voice tinged with concern. The Sterling family was influential in the city, but that didn't mean they were omnipotent. Individually, the Prescott, Vance, Adler, and Bishop families would have to bow to Sterling Group. But if all four families came at them at once, Sterling Group might not be able to withstand the pressure. Ethan paused, turning his head slightly, his eyes glinting with a frosty light. A bunch of useless, hedonistic louts. Since they only think with their lower bodies, then just get rid of them. With that one light, airy sentence, he decided their fate. As for their families, Ethan didn't give them a second thought. A moment later, he stopped again. The assistant looked up, confused. Mr. Sterling, is something wrong? Find someone to follow Willow. Report back to me immediately if anything happens. He hesitated for a moment before finally speaking. Yes, Mr. Sterling. 3 years later, Kingston City Airport. Willow Shaw pulled a suitcase with one hand and linked arms with the man beside her with the other, weaving through the crowd. They soon exited the terminal. As she was looking around for their ride, the window of a nearby Rolls-Royce Phantom silently rolled down. Ethan Sterling sat in the back, exuding an air of authority. His gaze swept past the man beside her before finally settling on Willow. Get in. Even though he had been receiving reports on her, seeing her in person felt surreal. The text and photos hadn't done it justice. Now, seeing her for himself, he could sense the change in her. In just 3 years, she had become so calm and self-assured, capable of standing on her own. His tone was as non-negotiable as ever, but this time, Willow could choose whether to listen. She paused, and after a moment of recognition, she didn't get in the car as he expected. Instead, she pursed her lips and took a step back, pulling Caleb Finch with her. She didn't say a word, but her rejection was clear. She had spent 3 years getting over him. Now that she was back, she had known a reunion was inevitable, but his appearance was too sudden. She wasn't ready. Ethan wasn't angry. He remained smiling and calm, refusing to yield. When they started to drag their suitcases in another direction, he called out, "Don't bother looking. He's already gone back." Willow stopped, turning back in annoyance. "What do you want?" Caleb, seeing her sudden anger, was confused. It wasn't until his eyes met the man in the car, feeling the undisguised hostility and rejection, that he frowned, seeming to understand. "What's wrong?" he asked, his voice as gentle and warm as his appearance. He gently patted her back, an intimate gesture that clearly showed their close relationship. Ethan saw the gesture for what it was, a declaration of ownership, and he also saw that Willow didn't mind it, but was even accustomed to it. He was speechless, a bitter taste in his mouth. He forced a smile and repeated his first 2 words, "Get in." Willow settled into the front passenger seat. In the back, Ethan and Caleb sat side by side. The atmosphere between them was so awkward and tense that even the usually unflappable driver could smell the gunpowder. Having investigated in advance, Ethan knew which day and flight Willow would be on, and who she would be with. That was why he had brought a driver and sat in the back, intending to keep Willow and Caleb from sitting together. Well, he had achieved his goal, but in a different way. To avoid him, she had chosen the front passenger seat herself. Chapter 16, for a moment, Ethan found it almost comical. But once they were all in the car, both men fell into a taciturn silence. Finally, Ethan was the one to break it. "Willow, aren't you going to make an introduction? Caleb Finch, my boyfriend." Glancing in the rearview mirror, she spared the two men in the back a look. She didn't argue further. After a pause, she added, "He's my Uncle Ethan. Nice to meet you, Uncle." Hearing the title, the hostility in Caleb's eyes vanished, replaced by a friendly smile. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. For the first time, the title Uncle felt incredibly grating. His face instantly darkened, and he didn't reply. Caleb wasn't offended. As if trying to appease an elder, he began to talk about his and Willow's time in Italy. Willow had once studied business management in college, a major she disliked just to be near Ethan, and then joined Sterling Group right after graduation. In Italy, she didn't want to repeat her past, but didn't know where to go. For a long time, she had been lost. Until a few months later, at an art exhibition, she met Caleb, who had a unique perspective on the art. Perhaps because they were two strangers in a strange land, she felt a rare spark of interest and talked with him for a long time. It wasn't until the staff came to close up that they reluctantly exchanged contact information and went their separate ways. Caleb, like her, had studied a major he disliked in college due to family and societal pressure. He had planned his escape for all 4 years of his degree. Finally, upon graduation, he took all his savings and flew to France, traveling until he reached Italy, where he met Willow. They talked for hours, online and off, and eventually made a shared decision. They would chase their original dreams together. After several sleepless nights, their hard work paid off, and they were both accepted into a top design school. On the day they graduated, he confessed his feelings for her. Luckily for him, she said yes. Ethan already knew all of this, but hearing it from the source always revealed details others wouldn't know. He didn't want to hear about how Willow fell in love with someone else, yet he craved to know everything about her. He looked up at her. The rearview mirror clearly reflected her smiling face and the undisguised affection in her eyes as she looked at Caleb. It was the same look she used to give him before she turned 22. "We didn't know you'd be picking us up, Uncle. We didn't prepare a gift," Caleb said with an embarrassed smile. Just as Willow was about to speak, the car came to a stop. The driver, not daring to look back, kept his head down and announced, "Sir, Mr. Finch, we've arrived." Caleb got out and had just pulled their suitcases from the trunk when Ethan smoothly took one from him and started wheeling it toward the villa. Caleb stared at his empty hands, puzzled. He turned back. "Your uncle is very enthusiastic. An elder helping me with my luggage?" Willow didn't understand Ethan's actions either. She paused, then said, "Maybe that's just what happens when you get older." Hearing this, Caleb stifled a laugh. He saw the figure in front of them pause and quickly covered it with a cough. "Well, I'll take yours then." At those words, Willow could have sworn she heard the sound of someone turning to stone. When Ethan heard them mention elder and getting older, he had already started to stiffen. But when he heard that the suitcase he'd snatched was Caleb's, he completely petrified. In that moment, he truly began to wonder if he was getting old. Compared to Caleb, who was her age and shared her passions, he was indeed lagging far behind. At the very least, the age gap was a chasm they had never managed to cross. His lips thinned. He abruptly handed the suitcase to a servant, his voice laced with gritted teeth. "There are no empty rooms upstairs. Find a room for Mr. Finch here on the first floor." Chapter 17, the servant froze, looking from the upstairs to the suitcase, completely baffled. Only Mr. Sterling lived in the villa. How could there be no empty rooms upstairs? But it was the boss's order, so the servant, though confused, wouldn't dare to question it. But the first floor was basically for the staff. The rooms were certainly not the best. They hadn't spoken loudly, and Willow, who was behind them, didn't hear. She surveyed the villa, her feelings still a complicated mix. When she had left so decisively all those years ago, she never thought she would return. But perhaps fate was like that. Some people were destined to be entangled. Upstairs, Willow instinctively led Caleb toward the guest bedroom. But after only 2 steps, Ethan's voice cut in. He once again took the suitcase from Caleb's hand. "The master bedroom has always been kept for you. You can stay here." The door opened, and the familiar layout of the bedroom brought an instant sting of tears to her eyes. The same life-sized teddy bear, a similar but more intricate pink dreamcatcher, framed photos of them scattered around, and the birthday album placed high on a shelf. Ethan stood beside her. A wave of bitterness washed over him, but he forced himself not to cry as he slowly explained. "When you left, You threw away all the gifts I gave you and our photos. By the time I went to look, the dump had already processed all the trash. I couldn't get them back, so I had to prepare new ones. I've been waiting for you to come back all these years. Thankfully, we both waited long enough. Willow, this time are you still going to leave? He asked tentatively in the end, but she didn't answer. It was a lie to say she wasn't moved. After all, this was the man she had loved for so many years. Seeing how he had gone to such lengths to preserve everything of theirs, she was bound to feel something. But she quickly suppressed the emotion. Uncle Ethan, you really didn't have to do all this. Besides, it's not right for a guest to sleep in the master bedroom while the host sleeps in a guest room. My sister wouldn't be happy either. She didn't want to rehash the rights and wrongs of the past. All she wanted now was to live her peaceful life. She turned to find Caleb, but he was no longer behind her. Ethan explained with a straight face, his luggage is downstairs. I had someone take him to unpack. There were no servants in the villa when Willow had left, so she didn't think about servants' quarters. Ethan didn't elaborate, and she didn't realize. But seeing that they were now alone, she took a step back, putting some distance between them. She opened her mouth, hesitating. Ethan, not noticing her unease, saw her retreat and took a step closer. I'm sorry, Willow. I misunderstood you back then, and I almost got you hurt because of me. I didn't marry Rosalind, and I never intended to hurt you. I just thought that since she was your sister, she would be more tolerant of you. I never imagined she would hire people to harm you. You must have been so scared that day your sister did such a thing, and when you called for help, I hung up on you. I never thought she could be so ruthless as to hurt herself just to frame you. You can blame me, yell at me, hit me, just don't hide from me again, don't leave me, okay? So much time had passed that Willow herself hadn't expected the truth to ever come out. She didn't know if her past self would have softened and stayed if she had received this apology then. But now, she just shook her head. I'm sorry, Uncle Ethan. Ethan froze, completely at a loss. He opened and closed his mouth several times, but Willow had already taken her suitcase back and started heading downstairs. Since Caleb is downstairs, I'll stay downstairs with him. Chapter 18, seeing that she was really about to carry the suitcase down, Ethan finally snapped out of it and rushed to stop her. Fine, have him come up. He couldn't persuade her, so he could only let her move back into the guest room she had stayed in before. Willow hadn't planned on a long stay, so she hadn't brought much. She quickly unpacked and was ready for bed. Just as she lay down, a knock sounded at the door. She had to get up again to open it. Ethan stood there with a glass of milk, his expression as normal as ever, as if the 3 years of separation had never happened. He naturally handed the milk to her. You always used to drink a glass of milk before bed. I warmed this up for you, it's the same brand you used to love. She looked down at his fingertips, reddened from the heat of the glass. She took the milk and sighed, Uncle Ethan, you really don't have to do this. He stood silently before her, not answering. In the shadows, his eyes swirled with repressed, deep emotion. A faint light flickered on behind him. She heard him say, Willow, I'm sorry. We should have been the closest people in the world, but in the end, I was the one who pushed you away. I thought I could live without you. It wasn't until you left, Willow, I regret it. I can't live without you, toward the end, his voice grew hoarse, his eyes red and pitiable. But unfortunately, the Willow of today was no longer the girl whose world revolved around Ethan Sterling. Uncle Ethan, my boyfriend is right next door. It's not appropriate to keep saying these things. She pointed to the next room, a little exasperated. Besides, Uncle, isn't this what you always wanted? She looked up, meeting his gaze directly. Her eyes showed no emotion, not even a flicker. They were almost cold. Whether you expected it or not, these are things you did, aren't they? Uncle Ethan, you were the one who gave up on me first, who didn't believe me first. Since we've both ended up where you originally wanted us to be, and I don't think there's anything wrong with my life now, Uncle, isn't it better to just leave things as they are? She drank the milk in one go. The temperature was just right, not too hot, not too cold. Then, Willow handed the glass back to him, turned, and went back into her room. As the door slowly closed, she saw the heartbreak and dejection in his eyes as he stood there. Her hand paused for a moment, and she added, And Uncle Ethan, I don't need milk before bed anymore. I've actually changed a lot of my old habits. It's better for both of us to move on. The door shut completely, and her figure vanished from his sight. He stood there, stunned, his heart aching as if pierced by a knife. His feet felt too heavy to move, and he had no desire to. Yes, she has changed. And he had changed long ago, too. Caleb emerged from his room, yawning. He groggily opened his eyes and saw a figure standing by the door, exuding a heavy, oppressive aura, completely motionless. His heart skipped a beat and all his sleepiness vanished. His eyes cleared. He instinctively took a step back. Using the faint light from his phone, he finally saw who it was. "Uncle, what are you doing standing here?" Caleb's voice pulled Ethan back to reality. He gave Caleb a cool glance but didn't answer, just snorted. "Don't be so familiar. Who's your uncle?" "You're Willow's uncle, and I'm Willow's boyfriend. Naturally, I should follow her lead and call you uncle." Hearing this, Caleb wasn't annoyed. In fact, he grinned at him. Ethan's body tensed, but he quickly relaxed and turned to finally look at Caleb properly, sneering. "You've only been together for a few years. Willow is still young. Who knows if you'll be the one to walk with her to the end?" He gave Caleb a cryptic smile and then turned to leave. Behind him, Caleb looked at his retreating back, then at Willow's door. His gaze grew deep, and after a long moment, he let out a soft laugh. "Who says we won't make it to the end?" Chapter 19, the next morning, when Willow came downstairs after getting ready, Caleb and Ethan were already seated at the dining table. Seeing her, they both called out for her to sit by them. "Willow, over here," without hesitation. She went straight to Caleb's side and took the breakfast he handed her, never once glancing at Ethan or the warm breakfast waiting by his seat. A bitter taste filled Ethan's mouth, but he had no one to blame but himself. He was the one who had thrown it all away. After breakfast, Willow and Caleb prepared to leave. As they reached the door, they saw Ethan again, his car parked right at the entrance. He tried to ignore their intertwined fingers and forced a smile. "Willow, where are you two headed?" "To get our marriage license," Willow answered casually. Her hand was squeezed tightly. She looked up and met Caleb's smiling eyes and couldn't help but smile back. In that instant, Ethan felt like he had been struck by lightning. A huge crack split his heart, and a gust of wind blew through, leaving him completely stunned. He was speechless. It wasn't until Willow spoke again that he came back to his senses. "Uncle Ethan, was there something else?" "I'll drive you," Ethan blurted out, a desperate excuse. Only after the words were out did he realize what he had said, a wave of regret washing over him. His offer surprised not only him but also Willow and Caleb. Just as she was about to refuse, Caleb suddenly accepted. "Sure, that would be great. Thanks, Uncle." Caleb emphasized the word uncle. For a moment, as their eyes met, Ethan could have sworn he saw a flash of triumph in Caleb's. The same seats as yesterday, the same silence as yesterday. Ethan's gaze drifted to Willow in the passenger seat, his mind replaying his conversation with Caleb from the night before. "You've only been together for a few years. Willow is still young. Who knows if you'll be the one to walk with her to the end?" He couldn't say if it was jealousy or pent-up anger that had made him say it. His tone hadn't been pleasant, and he had truly believed it. If he could give up on his years of history with Willow, what made Caleb think he could be with her for life? Caleb hadn't answered him then. But now the answer was clear without a word. They were getting married. The car stopped at the city clerk's office. Ethan watched their figures disappear into the crowd, leaned back against the seat, his thoughts in turmoil. For the past 3 years, he had woken up from the same dream countless times. He was holding Willow's hand, walking toward that dream-like place under the gaze of everyone. There was no judgment, no gossip, only blessings. He would ask her, "Willow, will you give me the rest of your life, walk with me to the end of our days?" But tragically, her answer always dissolved as the dream faded. Now, the dream had become reality. He was really here. Everything was the same as in the dream. She was holding the arm of the man she would spend the rest of her life with, walking toward the future amidst the envious glances of others. The only difference was that the man by her side wasn't him. He was the one left behind, forgotten by everyone, drowning in the past, unable to even blame anyone else. After all, he was the fool. He was the one who got engaged to someone else first. He was the one who had personally driven away the love of his life. "Willow, I'm sorry. I truly regret it. I don't want to let you go. What do I do?" Meanwhile, Willow and Caleb were oblivious to his turmoil. They looked at their brand new red marriage certificate with joy, their voices trembling slightly. Caleb pulled her into an embrace, showering her lips with kisses. "Willow, I finally married you when we get back to Italy. we'll have our wedding. How does that sound? Laughter erupted around them, but the staff were used to it. They had worked here for years. While some couples were calm and collected, many were just as emotional as this. Willow, caught off guard by the kisses, blushed. I know, just let me go first. Chapter 20. Fortunately, Caleb wasn't so overcome with emotion that he lost all reason. Hearing Willow's words, he cleared his throat and reined himself in. He took a few pictures of their marriage certificate with her hand in his and posted them on social media. His phone immediately started buzzing with notifications. He glanced down, fiddled with it for a moment, then, still beaming, took Willow's hand and ran outside. Come on, let's go show Uncle our marriage certificate. Willow gave him a suspicious look, wondering when he had developed such a show-off personality. But thinking back, she realized he had been acting strangely ever since he met Ethan. The reason for it seemed obvious now. She looked up at Caleb, who was pulling her along. The early summer wind wasn't yet scorching, carrying a slight coolness as it whipped her hair and skirt. The figure in front of her was sunny and bright, practically glowing in the sunlight. She suddenly thought, it would be nice if time could just stop right here. No sorrow, no worries. But accidents always happen when you least expect them. A figure in a black hoodie and a mask hurried past. No one paid much attention until it was too late. The person was right in front of them. Caleb, startled, tried to stop, but it was useless. The person was knocked to the ground. Willow rushed to help them up. Through the shadow of the hood, their eyes met. The person's weary, haggard eyes were unfamiliar, but the flash of surprise in them didn't escape her notice. As if deliberately avoiding her, the person pushed her away forcefully, then scrambled up and hurried off without a word. Thankfully, Caleb caught Willow from behind. He looked in the direction the person had gone, muttering unhappily. What kind of person is that? We try to help them up, and they just push you away. Willow also frowned at the retreating figure. The person seemed to know her, but hadn't acknowledged her. And while their eyes and build were unfamiliar, for some reason, her heart began to pound. Forget it. Let's not stoop to their level. She shook her head and pulled Caleb away. When they got to the car, they found Ethan wasn't inside. He was leaning against the car door, a lit cigarette between his fingers. Smoke curled up from it, but he wasn't smoking. His gaze was fixed on the distance, lost in thought. Uncle, let's go back. Caleb greeted him naturally. Willow's eyes flickered over the cigarette, and she frowned slightly. In her memory, Ethan never smoked. But she said nothing. After all, their relationship was now just a polite uncle to maintain surface-level harmony. It was Caleb's voice that brought Ethan back to reality. He saw her expression and quickly stubbed out the cigarette. He turned to let them in the car, but when he saw the scene before him, his pupils contracted violently. Look out, his mind went blank. Before he could even think, his body reacted. He threw an arm around Willow, and in the blink of an eye, they had switched places. Schlick. After a dizzying spin, a muffled grunt reached her ears. The next second, a heavy weight fell on Willow's shoulder. The foul smell of iron filled her nostrils. She looked up, dazed, and saw only a sea of red. Seeing the tears already welling in her eyes, Ethan forced a smile. He wanted to raise his hand to cover her eyes, but he had no strength left. When he opened his mouth, blood poured out. He coughed, gasping for air as he tried to reassure her. Willow, close your eyes, don't look, you'll be scared. Chapter 21. Caleb was also shocked by the sudden turn of events, but he quickly recovered. He kicked the figure who was trying to flee, swiftly pinning them down. He pulled out his phone, called the police and an ambulance. Willow, don't be scared, the police and ambulance will be here soon, don't move. He soothed Willow while keeping one leg on the struggling attacker. When he saw the person's attire, rage flared within him. It was the same person they had bumped into earlier. It was you, before long. The police and ambulance arrived. One took the attacker, Caleb, and the driver. The other took Ethan and Willow. Outside the operating room, Willow sat on a bench, her mind in a chaotic mess. Thankfully, Caleb finished giving his statement and returned quickly. The Finch family had already dispatched a lawyer to handle the case. Caleb sighed, looking at the glowing red, in surgery, light, a mixture of feelings churning inside him. He put his arm around Willow, letting her lean on his shoulder. He gently patted her back, knowing that words were useless right now. All he could do was be there for her. Uncle Ethan will be okay, right? After what felt like an eternity, the operating room doors remained closed. Willow, who had been silent all this time, suddenly spoke. She looked up at him, her eyes filled with fear and uncertainty, seeking a sliver of comfort. He nodded forcefully, trying to give her as much reassurance as possible. "He'll be fine, he'll be fine." Finally, the red light went out. The doctor came out, letting out a long sigh of relief himself. "The patient is temporarily out of danger. He can be moved to a regular room once he wakes up." Hearing the news she had been waiting for, Willow went limp. She watched as Ethan, still unconscious, was wheeled to a room. Her heart finally settled, and in the next second, her vision went black. Willow slept for a full day and night. The doctor had diagnosed her with exhaustion from prolonged stress, and she had simply fainted from the sudden release of tension. Otherwise, Caleb would have been worried she was injured too. They woke up at almost the same time. When she heard Ethan was awake, Willow ran to his room without even putting on her shoes. When she arrived, he was on the phone, seemingly getting an update from his lawyer. Since the attacker was caught in the act, the case was resolved quickly. It was only on the day of the verdict that Willow finally learned who it was: Rosalind Shaw, her own sister. Years of working in nightclubs, combined with alcoholism and a life of selling her body, had ravaged Rosalind's health. That was why Willow hadn't recognized her when they'd met. She had stolen money and run away. On the run, she had encountered Willow, now glamorous and with a loving husband. Jealousy had driven her to madness. She had bought a fruit knife and followed them, originally intending to take Willow down with her. She never expected Ethan to be the one who got hurt. On the day the death sentence was announced, Willow received a message that Rosalind wanted to see her. She ignored it, pretending she never saw it, pretending she never had a sister. Because Ethan had been injured for her, their planned return trip had to be postponed. Caleb was deeply resentful of this but was helpless. After all, he had been a step too slow that day, letting Ethan be the one to save Willow. Willow had only planned to stay until Ethan recovered. Once he was well, everything would go back to normal. He would be the CEO of Sterling Group, and she and Caleb would continue on the path they had set for their lives. Until a diagnosis for late-stage stomach cancer appeared in Ethan's medical file. He was silent for a long time, then finally managed a smile and patted her head, his touch light and brief. "Don't cry, Willow. I've actually been very happy these past few weeks." Willow didn't want to cry, but the tears wouldn't stop. She had resented Ethan. When she had loved him most, he had clearly felt something for her but had pushed her away, even getting together with her sister, choosing Rosalind over her time and time again, hurting her. But she never imagined this would be the end. He was the one who had raised her, who had given her so many years of unwavering affection. She had resented him, hated him, and even planned to cut all ties with him after returning. But he wouldn't let go. Chapter 22, he had forced his way back into her life, bearing his soul from the moment they met again. Willow thought she could be heartless, but she couldn't escape the fact that he had saved her life. All the walls she had built came crashing down the moment he collapsed in front of her, the moment she saw him lying lifeless in that hospital bed. So she thought, just one last time, "I'll stay with him until he recovers from this, and then we'll be even." Just when she thought things were finally getting better, fate played its cruel hand. He was diagnosed with terminal stomach cancer, with only a year left to live. "I'm not crying." Tears fell like broken pearls. She wiped them away, her head held high in defiance. "Uncle Ethan, do you think this will make me soften up?" "It won't." He was still smiling. For some reason, after their reunion, his smiles had always been tinged with bitterness. Now, there was a sense of release. Ethan beckoned for Caleb to sit down as well. He sat down silently, his heart aching as he looked at Willow's tear-streaked face. He was also filled with dread. Caleb was scared, too. Willow had never told him the full story of her and Ethan. At their first meeting, she had just said he was her uncle, but he had seen right away that there was more to it. At the time, he had thought that since their story was over and Willow had agreed to marry him, what did the past matter? He thought he could be indifferent until Ethan was diagnosed with cancer. The dead always weigh more heavily than the living. He pressed his lips together, unsure why Ethan had called him over. He could only sit in silence, awaiting the final verdict. "From now on, Willow will be in your care. I heard you two haven't had your wedding yet. What are your plans?" Strangely, Ethan was the one to bring it up. He thought he would feel bitter, resentful. He thought he would be jealous that someone else could now stand rightfully by Willow's side. But in that moment, his heart was surprisingly calm. Perhaps it was because he knew he was dying. He had naturally come to accept that someone else would be by Willow's side. He was just a little unwilling to let go, unwilling that they, who had been the first to love each other, could now only watch as she married another man. Caleb was stunned, not expecting him to bring this up. After a moment's hesitation, he nodded. "We were planning to have the wedding in Italy." Ethan was silent for a long time, then he looked at Willow. "Why don't you have the wedding here in the city? I want to see you get married, even if the groom isn't me." He silently added the last part in his heart. Seeing that she hadn't answered, he added, "At the very least, I'm sort of your guardian. I should be there for your wedding." After a long pause, Willow finally nodded. Where the wedding was held didn't matter. At least here, they were all together. Caleb had no objections. They had immigrated to Italy later in life. It wasn't as if they had a deep sense of belonging there. And so, the wedding preparations began in earnest. From the venue to the dress and the rings, the three of them handled everything personally. The dress was designed by Willow, the rings by Caleb, and the venue was chosen by Ethan. When he saw the finished dress, Ethan's mind drifted back to the past. This wasn't the first wedding dress she had designed. The thought of that other dress made his eyes darken. He had kept that first dress, saved in the closet of the master bedroom at the villa. During those 3 years, he had often dreamed of Willow wearing that dress, walking towards him with a radiant smile, and saying a firm, "I do," when the officiant asked. Then he would wake up, stumble to the master bedroom, turn on the light, and stare at the dress all night. She will never wear that dress again, he thought. And now, seeing this new one, he knew it was true. She had a new dress and a new love. Chapter 23, on the wedding day, though the guest list was small, the event was exceptionally grand. In the city's most luxurious hotel, on a stage paved with millions of dollars worth of fresh flowers flown in from abroad, Willow wore the wedding dress she had designed herself and walked toward the man who was steadfastly devoted to her. The officiant read the standard lines. Flower girls scattered petals, escorting the ring bearer forward. In the audience, Ethan sat in a white suit, listening silently as the officiant announced, "The bride and groom will now exchange rings." His fingers fumbled in his pocket. Inside, in a small velvet box, was a 5-carat diamond ring that would never be given. "Hey, isn't that Mr. Sterling? Why is he dressed so formally? Is he planning to crash the wedding? But isn't the bride supposed to be his niece?" Who knows? The whole affair between Mr. Sterling and the older Shaw sister was a huge spectacle too, and that came to nothing. "I heard she was arrested a few days ago." "Really? What happened?" The guest's whispers reached his ears. His expression didn't change, but his heart ached. Yes, he wanted to crash the wedding, but it was just a thought. After all, Willow was already married to Caleb. After all, he was the one who had organized this wedding. And after all, he was dying. He could only resort to this pathetic attempt to keep her by his side a little longer, to move her wedding from abroad to here. And then he would attend her wedding in his finest suit, with the ring he had custom made 3 years ago. He would pretend that this was their wedding, too. The reception was filled with congratulations. By the time Willow had a free moment, Ethan was no longer in his seat. After finally seeing off all the guests, both she and Caleb were exhausted. "Are the plane tickets booked?" Willow stared at the empty seat, a little dazed. "Tomorrow morning at 10, Caleb nodded. He paused. "Are you sure you don't want to tell him?" She pulled her gaze away and started walking forward, holding her dress. Seeing that they were the only 2 left in the venue, she no longer bothered to lower her voice. "No, I don't think so. I'm still not very good at goodbyes." Seeing her walk away, Caleb didn't press the issue and hurried after her. But as he stepped out of the venue, he glanced back one last time at the stage. Then he turned and didn't look back. Behind the stage, a mannequin was dressed in the first wedding dress Willow had ever designed. Ethan stood beside it and whispered, "I do." As he heard their voices fade into the distance, he finally emerged from behind the stage, muttering to himself, "Tomorrow morning at 10, huh?" But Ethan didn't go to see them off. He just stood outside the airport, watching the plane take off on time, flying toward the horizon. He knew they would never see each other again. A gust of wind swept the fallen leaves across the empty road, then let them drift back down. He stood in the wind, watching them go. High up in the clouds, Willow looked down. The city grew smaller and smaller until the man waiting by the road was no longer visible. "Do you have any regrets?" Caleb asked. She shook her head and looked at him. "Caleb, I'm sorry about this whole time. But I want you to know, from the moment I made the decision to choose you, I've never looked back." Time flew. A year passed in the blink of an eye, and Ethan did not get his miracle. The following spring, on the day of the Kingaming Festival, his grave received 2 visitors. Willow caressed her slightly swollen belly, looking at the gentle, handsome face on the tombstone. She pouted. "You must have practiced a lot to maintain that look." He was never a gentle person, she thought. "Uncle Ethan, I'm very happy now. You can rest easy."